my dear friends, my dear students, let me introduce my friend Gabor Holch. Gabor Holch and myself became friends when Bayer had decided to implement a culture of performance and feedback in the Bayer organization. They searched for consultants and they found out that the Munich Leadership Group, which is a highly skilled international consultancy firm, expert in leadership development and transformation and performance, they were selected, and their top consultant Gabor Holch was chosen to come to Pakistan and train our top management. So he came to Pakistan, we became friends. Then I visited Shanghai to get a certification and training on the same training. I again met Gabor Holch in Shanghai, and finally we invited him again in Pakistan for an advanced level performance and feedback training. He came here, he got a bit familiar with the culture of Pakistan, and he's a very senior guy, holds degrees in languages, international relations and diplomacy. He has written 3 books and published about 100 articles for academic and business publications. It's a privilege for all of you, including myself, to welcome him in this session. So I welcome you, Gabor, on behalf of my college, my institution, my students. Thank you very much for sparing time. So I now hand over mic to you.
And I thank you very much. It's a privilege for me to be here. Under some more fortunate circumstances, we would meet personally. And if Gohar, if you are still in Karachi, then we would take a walk in the sun. We would go to that area with the cafes. It was fantastic last time, but unfortunately we have to make do with communicating with each other online. Yeah. So let's say Mr. Wang, who is Chinese, goes over to Pakistan and does business there. We don't know if Mr. Wang is a good cultural fit for, let's say, a place like Karachi, which is virtually the only place in Pakistan I know relatively. So how do we know if Mr. Wang is a good cultural fit? First of all, we have to have a rough idea about the culture of Pakistan and what are the differences between the culture of, let's say, Pakistan and Karachi as a population center. And if we have a rough idea about it, then we can see if Mr. Wang is a typical Chinese person or not. If Karachi is a fairly typical place in Pakistan and Mr. Wang is a fairly typical Chinese person, it's very easy. Even the Hofstede system could help us solve this problem because we only have to look at cultural characteristics. If either Karachi is not a very typical mainstream Pakistani place, or Mr. Wang is not a typical Chinese person, then we have to go deeper. And we have to get a little bit of data about the behaviors typical there and the personality of Mr. Wang. But it's not so difficult to do, actually, with the right tools. And the tool that I'm showing you here is called Global DISC. So it's a DISC assessment combined together with an intercultural data set. It can help you sit down and within an hour, especially if you talk it through with other people, you can have a fairly good idea about the cultural fit. Now, what happens if somebody has a poor cultural fit? So let's say Mr. Wang is simply not the culture of the company where Mr. Wang is going to visit, and his own cultural style doesn't have enough of an overlap. Let's say there is a big gap. The first thing what's going to happen is that Mr. Wang is going to feel stressed when he does business with you. He's not going to like the way he's picked up at the airport. He's not going to like the way let's say the lunch breaks are arranged, the way people negotiate, the way people express their opinions, and lots of others. So all of these little things that we do almost automatically will become a stressant. The next thing that is going to happen is that Mr. Wang is going to feel alone. Goes back to his hotel room and he thinks, you know, these people don't understand me. They don't see what I mean. They don't see what I want. What am I doing in the first place? It's a very emotional thing. And yet it's very important in business. And also what I list as a victim mentality, if the pressure is bigger, if the gap is very big, and Mr. Wang cannot talk about these things with anybody, including, let's say, through Skype with his family, then little by little, Mr. Wang will almost feel like he's surrounded and everybody just wants his money and doesn't care about what he wants. So this obviously undermines trust in business. And it's also going to lead to some cultural mistakes that he can make because he's going to be jumpier. He's going to be more suspicious. Then he's going to ask some suspicious questions. And then the Pakistani partners will say, why is he asking us these questions? Doesn't he trust us? So it's going to turn into a little bit of a vicious circle. And what we have to know about culture shock is that it's tiring. It can be very, very tiring. So after a couple of hours of operating in a foreign language in an environment which is not a good fit, you just want to go to bed. Now, what happens if there is a good cultural fit? So let's say Mr. Wang's natural temperament and the values that he brought from family, school, and his professional history is almost accidentally an excellent fit with the country, the city, and the company that he's going to experience when he, let's say, visits you in Karachi. What's going to happen is suddenly you feel at home, even if you don't try. Let's say you are a person who likes talking about, I don't know, outdoors and fishing, and you are surrounded by people who like talking about outdoors and fishing. If you feel uncomfortable, let's say you like to say it immediately. Oh, please, try this food. It's very delicious. Before I eat, I always like to wash my hands. Can I wash my hands? So if you're in an environment which immediately gets you for cultural reasons, it becomes very easy to interact. The other thing is because the newcomer behaves in a similar way to the local people look at each other and say, these Chinese people, they're actually quite cool. I think we can work together with them very well. So they suddenly start supporting each other. And there is trust, and there is help, and there is offers of resources and so on. So the business takes place in a much more natural, much more seamless way, as we could say. Now, because of this, if this happens, Mr. Wang is going to gain self-confidence. I was so worried to go to Pakistan, but these people are nice. These people are helpful. This is not going to be so difficult after all. So whereas a cultural pressure can be a vicious circle, this one can become a virtuous circle, which means everything will speed up. People will go to conclusions faster. Meetings are easier. Contracts are signed quicker. People put the down payment a little bit faster because they trust and they are transparent with each other. And that can be a fantastic feeling. And this is why we like certain places better than others. This is why personally, I am much more comfortable doing business in the Philippines or actually Pakistan than, let's say, in Japan. Because the Japanese culture just puts me under pressure. I know they are honest people. I know that they are great people, very helpful people. But the culture, just the chemistry of the culture makes life a little bit difficult for me, personally. I have to get used to it. I have to learn certain skills, which if you see, and I told you that my primary style is the yellow style. And then you can see that Japan is more or less in the opposite corner. Then you can see what the reason for is. And yes, China is also quite far from my natural style. So I was theoretically interested in China before I came here, and it took many years and a lot of effort to learn to do constructive business with Chinese people, and then of course make friends and settle down here. But that's no problem. I mean, sometimes we want to do difficult things just to take the challenge.
Yeah, great.
I will stop here, and I'm not in a big hurry. So depending on how much time you have, I'm sure that some people will have questions.
Yeah, thank you very much, Gabor. And my students actually, one unique thing also, Gabor is actually an Urdu name also. Let me tell you how. It means Jibrail.
Jibrail, I still remember from my childhood. Yeah. Yes.
Jibrail.
And how do you say in Urdu? Do you also say Jibrail?
Yes, Jibrail. Jibrail is in Urdu also, in Arabic also.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
so,
yes.
I think it was an interesting, very interesting discussion, how cultural fit is, like the importance of cultural fit in international organizations. I'm quite sure that you might have not heard about like these kind of aspects before. If you have any questions now, you can ask questions.